I am Lily Morgan. I was born here in Josephine County and have lived here all of my life except for a short stint of college and working afterwards for a couple of years. I've been back for 16 years and working here in Josephine County. So the majority of my time back here has been working in the criminal justice system. I worked 5 years as a 911 dispatcher. During that time, I felt I needed to do more than just answer the phones and send the help. I wanted to help, so I volunteered as a reserve deputy for 3.5 years, for 3.5 years. And then I was hired as a parole officer. I've worked the last 11 years as a parole officer. During that time, I also worked on call for the sheriff's office when they created their dispatch center for another 3 years. So all in all, I have 8 years dispatching for this county. The last 3 years were very significant for me in that patrols had been cut. There were times that I was working a 10 or 12-hour shift and I had no patrol on duty. So I would take the 911 calls and try to call somebody out on call if I could, or send it to state police. But also would have those times where you're on the phone with somebody for up to an hour, that you're the only lifeline they have when they're calling for help and there's no one going quickly. And I don't like that feeling. It's not an easy thing to hear the end of a life on the other end of a phone, or other things that you are faced as a dispatcher. I have much more enjoyed my time as a parole officer, where you're essentially working to help somebody eliminate barriers in their life to make changes so they could be productive in their life, so they can have a job, they can have housing. You know, a lot of our folks these days are homeless. They're dealing with just trying to find basic skills to survive, whether it be where to sleep, where to eat. And through that, I have joined several boards in the community. I serve on the Rock Food Pantry Board, and that's the largest food pantry in Josephine County. I also, in a response to trying to find once the Ray Allen Detox Center closed, was looking for a solution and joined a community group that was looking for solutions, and out of that we created the Grants Pass Sobering Center. And that's been a 3-year effort that we opened our doors. We've served almost 150 people in the last few months that we are open, and seeing results of trying to get people sent to services. I additionally serve on the local area alcohol drug planning commission for where our alcohol tax money gets routed back to the county to be distributed. We're the body that kind of recommends where that goes. So a lot of prevention training, working with groups with the youth and the alcohol and drug treatment counselors in town. As you can tell, I spent most of my adult life in public service. Not all of it. I worked in the business community in Seattle before that, working in marketing and in insurance brokerage. So I did the commute, I did the daily grind of downtown Seattle, and I don't miss that. I much prefer my home and the rural community. I stepped up to serve on city council 6.5 years ago, after there was a big recall of several counselors, and I wanted to be a part of trying to find a solution. Did I get every choice right? No, but you make the best decision you can at the time. And for the most part, I think when I left a year ago, we left it in better hands than when I got it. And I feel that's why I'm running for county commissioner, so that the opportunity to make our county better is there. I'm really discouraged by our low high school response rates with a 68% completion. The county and the city get economic development monies, but we're not working directly with the school districts. We need to be working to have a whole system so the kids who grow up here have jobs they can go to, and that we can be bringing those jobs in that will meet those needs. And so we need to be working together to create those jobs. But creating jobs is hard when the community doesn't feel safe. How do you respond to Williams when it's a 40-minute drive from town in traffic, and you guys need emergency response? Well, the reality is we need to look outside the box to get you help for right now if something happens. Does that mean using community emergency response teams, resident deputies, other volunteer things, really that conversation for the extreme rural areas has to happen, because no matter how much money you throw at the county, it's not going to help if we can't get to you and you're not getting help in a timely manner. So those conversations of how to get help to the communities are really what we have to start with. And once we are safe and have a means for that, working with those jobs, and then making sure there's accountability with where it's spent, and having that service be done, from the county, be done with accountability, transparency, and respectful service. So that's why I'm here today. I appreciate you guys taking the time to come out, and it's beautiful out here, so thank you.
And my name's DeYoung, and I'm running for Commissioner position number 2. I was born and raised in Grass Pass, Oregon, born in 1949, and then graduated from Grass Pass High School at the class of 67. 1 year later, I joined the United States Navy and spent 4 years aboard a ship in the United States Navy, traveled all over the world, saw an awful lot of things I liked and an awful lot of things that I didn't like. But after 4 years, my wife and I, who was my my high school sweetheart, we got married while we were in the military and had 2 children. We moved back to Grass Pass because this is both her home and my home. We've been here ever since. I'm still married to my wife, Pam, 47 years later, and 2 children and 6 grandchildren later. My hobbies are, let's go with a career. After I got out of the Navy, I studied and worked in the air conditioning and refrigeration trade in the Navy. And as soon as I got involved in the physics side of it, and evaporation and condensing and heat travel, I was in love. And I've been in that particular job field ever since. I worked for Rogue Valley Heating and Air Conditioning. We put in a ton of systems out in the Williams area and all over the valley, including Medford and the coast. I worked there for 9 years as a service manager, and in 1981, I started my own business, All Seasons Heating and Air Conditioning, which I basically turned over to the employees 2 years ago, and I retired. So I worked in Grass Pass for a long time, and every time I'd go by City Hall on my way to work, and I'd see people coming in and out of City Hall, and I thought, everything's cool, they're working for me. And then when the recall happened, I too, as Lily did, I stepped up and decided to run. And there were 5 of us that ran for we were trying to race a black eye in Grass Pass's history, because the voter recalled a quorum. We couldn't do business. So then their answer, the staff's answer, and what was left of the city council was, let's just bring 5 of our friends in and we'll run the city that way until we can have a special election. So the election that Lily and I were both elected in 7 years ago now, I think was probably one of the biggest turning points for Grants Pass. And I know there's concern that Lily and I are both from the city of Grants Pass, so look out, they're used to spending tons of money, and boy, they're going to keep spending money. I think quite to the opposite. Lily and I, both of us, although we don't agree on a lot of things, and I don't think we've agreed on a number of issues, but we do work well together to get the best thing for the citizens that we serve. There's a number of issues that she voted one way and I voted one way, and we argued amongst the council until we came to a consensus that I think was the best thing for the citizens of the city of Grants Pass. I know she does, and I know certainly I do. I wish to take that one step further into the county and put our arms around the county. I think if you can't keep the city and the county healthy, it doesn't matter what the state does, because to be quite honest with you, I don't know if you've noticed, but we don't even exist above Roseburg. They don't care about us. They don't listen to us. We're outvoted on everything you could possibly think at the state level. And I think we need a strong voice when we go to the Capitol representing Josephine County. And I think we need a voice that's very sure in what they're going to do and what they want, and also have a solution how to fix it. I was in business for 35 years, and I think that in itself is a real asset to any government agency, because guess what? I've had to earn the money. I've had to figure out how it's going to get spent, because it was my money, and I treat everybody's money like it's your money. I've been there. I've been almost broke a couple times. I can smell it coming. And what I see is something that I think we're on the verge of a real gold rush, if you will, in Josephine County. We've just got to control it. Going on to the marijuana side of it, I think marijuana, it's new. None of us really know what the rules are. Just as the water master told us, this thing bounces around between medical, between recreational, between groundwater, between surface water, between rainwater. It bounces all over the place. So there's some things there that I think we're going to have to work out. I think there's some professional people in the cannabis industry, and in a couple of years we're going to find out who those people are, because they'll be left standing. I think right now, with the freshness of the cannabis industry, we've got an awful lot of people that think it's karaoke night at the corner bar, and they all think they can get up to the microphone and sing. Well, guess what? Some people can't sing. And I think after a couple of years, you're going to find out that there are some legitimate people in the cannabis industry that want to do the right thing, that want to be the good neighbors, that want to be a part of the community, and what they are producing and marketing can help this community. We don't get logs anymore. And again, talking on logs just a little bit, and we'll cover that a little bit later. Right now, with the mills all moving out of the valley, Superior Lumber is now building a brand new mill in Springfield, Oregon. So if you think you can cut logs out here off of this hillside and truck them all the way to Springfield, Oregon, and have any money left over for profit, think again. It just won't happen. So we've got to be realistic about this thing. But at the same time, what I want to hear is I want to hear from the cannabis industry, and I want you to take ownership of some of the complaints. We hear the complaints. We hear a lot of them. And yet, when I went to a couple of the forums, there was cannabis people who stood up and said, nope, that's all bunk. And I keep thinking, well, at some point in time, we've all got to take ownership. I had to take ownership in the heating and air conditioning business because of Freon. I'm poking a hole in the ozone. And we had to take ownership of that. Our industry took ownership of it and came up with a different style of not Freon, but refrigerant. So I think if we can take ownership and we can all sit down together, I think we can come through this thing and be just fine. But it's not going to be done this year. It's not going to be done this growing season. Probably not next year, but I'm going to guess within 2 years, we're all going to be sitting at the table just like we sit at the table about the wineries and the grape vineyards. Now, you talk about a use of water. That uses a lot of water. But as long as it's growing up for wine and we all slosh the glass in the evening time, it's okay.
30 times.
But, beg your pardon?
30 times the water.
Well, you've got the statistics. I'm just talking about generalities here. But I'm thinking that when we get down to the wine industry, 50 years ago there wasn't a vineyard in the valley. And now look at it. We're very popular. One of the things is that we have, and it's one thing, Oregon has made marijuana cannabis legal. Now, is everybody following the rules? Is everybody, when the water resources lady said, yep, everybody's a medical grower, and nope, nobody makes any money on it. I cannot believe that, ladies and gentlemen. I really can't do it. Because the numbers that I have heard, sometimes they just don't add up, even with the new math. They don't add up. So I think in all honesty, this will be something that we've all got to work together on. But I'm not saying that you're all at fault and that the complainants are all at fault and the people that your grow is right up next to their bedroom window that they don't have a complaint. You can bet your bippy they do. We get beat up, well, Lily does it because she wanted to put it back on the ballot, and it's going on the ballot in Grants Pass about our dispensaries program in Grants Pass where they're not allowed in Grants Pass. That's because the citizens of Grants Pass said they didn't want it. It's going on the ballot as an advisory question coming up this November. Whether to, and we lump all dispensaries into, you're going to want dispensaries or not want dispensaries. And if they're legal out in the county, and that's only a mile from anywhere in Grants Pass, you can walk to a dispensary. It's not like we're asking you to go from Beaverton all the way to Gresham to get it like you would have in Northern Oregon. But going back to some of the other things that we've got on our deal, you talk about public safety and criminal and crime out here. It's going to be really tough for you to vote in anything. With the sheriff's department, you don't have resident deputies out here of some sort. You either have resident deputies or we give you the training for your neighborhood watch programs, for your own police department, if you will, and get you the proper training as to what is allowed and what isn't allowed. And the same thing with your fire department. You have a heck of a volunteer fire department out here. Why don't we get you training and the volunteers training in the medical aspect of it, so that when one of you has a heart attack, guess what? That's going to be the first person on scene. Let's make sure they know what they're doing. So everybody's got a chance. And I can say so. I've never had a heart attack, but I have a zipper right here to prove what heart conditions are. Not comfortable. But this is what I think what needs to happen here in the Valley. I think that we're all here. I mean, you don't live in Williams, and you don't live in Josephine County because you don't want to. Nobody's forcing you to. This is where you want to live. When I was in the Navy, I was on the ship I wanted to be on. So when it started to sink, I didn't just, wow, that's it, I'm going to sit over here, swim off here 100 yards and watch it go down. Heck no. I fought tooth and nail to keep that thing afloat. And I think everybody in this community needs to fight tooth and nail to make sure Josephine County stays afloat. And then we can all live here. You can have your lifestyle, I can have my lifestyle. Everybody can live in harmony, so to speak, because I don't like that word. On the personal side, like I said, I'm a family man. My kids have both moved away. As Lily said, there was no jobs for them. When my daughter left, she left here to become the restaurant manager at the Disneyland Hotel. Pretty tough to beat that at Tap Rock, isn't it? You're not going to find that kind of a job here. My son works for the FAA in Oklahoma City as a quality control inspector for the FAA in their rotary air division. Can't do that around here either. He did work for Erickson Air Crane, but as they laid off people, he was one of the ones to go, and he didn't let grass under his feet, wait for them to get back on their feet. Took off for Oklahoma City, got a nice job back there, and he's very successful. Myself personally, I do old cars. You'll find me in my shop. I rebuild muscle cars. I'm building a 56 Chevrolet for myself. I just finished a Nova for my wife. And I've got a whole string of cars that I'm going to do for retirement. So I'm a hot rodder and a gearhead, and a resident of Josephine County. I have been all my life, and I intend to, they can pat dirt in my face with a shovel right here. I like it.
Good. Next.
My name's Bill Hunker, 34-year Oregon resident, but I've been 8 years in Josephine County. I have two brothers, and my mom moved here. I was one of the last ones that came in, and I spent a summer here and said, I like the weather, it's the climate. So I've been here, got involved several years ago, just as the 2012 levy went down. One of our people in our neighborhood said, we need to have a neighborhood watch, and I said, great, I've never done that. I'm willing to try. Got involved in Neighborhood Watch. Absolutely changed our community. We only have 32 homes in it, but we know each other. There's a high trust level, and that started me on the road. Someone in the Neighborhood Watch early on said, well, if you want to know why we're forming this, you ought to go down to the BCC and attend meetings. And I started 5 years ago doing that. I began, in my life, most of the things that I get involved with, I want to do the research. You never get here without traveling there. You don't arrive one morning there. You walked every one of those steps to get where our county is. And so I said, what's happened? When I found out that we had over 40 mills at one time in this county, and they all went away, and I said, how could they go away and nobody noticed other than the people who lost their jobs? And then I began to understand O&C. And some of the money that was given to O&C, and I realized that for decades, the county had their budget every year, no matter what happened to the economy. So we had an economy that started slowly going away, but the county never had to look up. They always got their check. There could have been no industry almost in this county. The county got their check. So they just went on with business as usual. Some of you who are newer, even than I am, can remember that there were no taxes in this county from 1970 to 1980 for personal property. That's a long time for a county to not talk to their constituents and not have dialogue. And so I began to look at what's gone on over the 23 years. Pretty easy, by the way, if you're into research at all. The Internet's really good back about 23 to 25 years. After that, you have to start digging for paper sometimes. But so I went back 23 years in several areas and said, how did we arrive here? So we are here, however. And then on top of it, just about the time I considered running, is Measure 91 went through, and we have a whole other stack of issues that are on top of very old issues in this county. You guys in Williams have known cannabis growing for, what, minimum 40 years, 30 years? And you've got growers here that are second generation, and you understand the issues more than most. It is now legal. It is a source of revenue, and has been a source of revenue for a long while for certain people. But it's going to take time now to settle out. When I heard in January, or I guess it was March, how much tax had come in, and they had missed it by almost 12 times, I said, they're going back to the table. There's no people who are in business, in government, who see money like that and not come back to the table. So we're not settled out here in the county on what Salem's going to do, even yet. When California votes in November, we're all fairly sure that they're going to vote, and that will change the whole course again. My background is that have been private sector business my whole life. I had two very divergent areas in my life. One, I was a television producer for 23 years. Ended up in LA for 10 years and had a national show. And then, through only the set of circumstances life offers us, I moved sideways into food manufacturing. Some of you may know the term garden burger. I took Garden Burger public, and it became the fastest growing stock in '93 in the United States. And so I sort of moved sideways again and got involved in financing packages between builders and venture capitalists. My background is that's how I come at most things. I do like spreadsheets, I do like numbers, I do like stats, I do like to make sense. And I can say clearly, because I haven't moved an inch from this, is I am not for the levy that's currently here. I was not for last year's levy, and I haven't voted in any of the levies for a yes. There's a variety of reasons, but the main reason is it isn't done business-like. If you took what we just saw, trying to be a levy, and took it into a bank and said, would you please give me $42 million on this piece of paper? They would laugh you out. And we're the bank, as people in this county, taxpayers are the bank. And you come to me with a piece of paper like that and expect me to give you $42 million with that level of detail, I am sorry as a professional. I cannot do that for you. I will not support anything like that is so absolutely vague. So I say that proudly and loudly, and a lot of people disagree with me, and I have reasons. The levy, however, I will say, does the sheriff need money? Do we need to look again at the way we handle crime? Absolutely. And I support the sheriff, and I support the sheriff particularly in what one of his campaign promises was, that he was really going to get involved in neighborhood watches and support them and help build them and grow them. And I will continue to do that with and for him, and whatever energy I can help out with as a commissioner to see that happens. There's a lot more things that can be done, and each of us, I think, have our own ideas on ways that we can redo things. I watched for 4 years after the levy of 12 went down, and I did not see what I thought was anything out of the box as a professional. But I've been surprised, and I'll give credit. In about the last, since February, March, I began to see them doing things as county commissioners I would have done as a businessman back in 12. When you first lose your money, that's when you start panicking, folks. Should have been before that. But when it actually falls off, you start doing something then. And now we're doing things that 4 years ago we would have had a good handle on, some more income. But we're doing it, and so that's a good thing. So I intend to bring a business professional eyes to the county. And the other thing I think has happened is the trust levels are way down in all of government, federal, state, county, and that is almost always birthed by a lack of trust. And that trust is, you get that lack of trust because you don't have transparency, you don't know what's going on. And so, though there's been attempts made, and I admit that a lot of the people have very busy lives. We have a very poor county and a very wealthy county all at the same time, living side by side. But transparency is the way you build trust. I'll tell you what we're doing. I'll tell you what the outcome and where it came from, best of my knowledge. And out of that, hopefully, I'll always be available to give you the background for trust. I'm not a politician. I've never run for anything else in my life. And I, after getting involved with the BCC for that many years, I said, you better shut up or stand up. And so I stood up, and it'll be what it'll be. I appreciate your time.
What seat are you running?
Position number 3.
I'm 3.
3-3-2-2.
2,
We went
Two.
every other.
yeah, 3.
It was to keep us from fighting.
Daggers.
Yes, keep the blood level down.
Separated.
I think that the question was asked, give a brief biographical background sketch. So I will be very brief in my background sketch, not the whole policy, but my biographical background sketch. I was born in Wisconsin. My mom and dad were farmers. My dad was, I was the last of the litter. My folks moved out of Wisconsin in '47 when I was 5. And I have 4 older brothers. We moved out to Southern California. My dad sold the farm back in Wisconsin and able to get a house out in Southern California in the big town of Redlands, and which is now Redlands. It used to be Mentone when I was there, but they've been incorporated in Redlands now, down in Southern California. My dad worked hard. He was first about 8 months I was out there. From age of 53, he rode about 20 miles up to the mountains every morning, 6 days a week. As he said, he was the south end of a 2-handed bucksaw cutting down trees. And that's what he did for about 6-7 months. And why? Well, because he had 2 kids at home and they had to feed them, and a wife, and had a house, had to work. So that's what he had to do, and so he did. That kind of ethic, I think, has been instilled in all of the children, myself included. But then he got a job at the Brookside Dairy and worked there until he was retired in '65. When he turned 65, and this was back in 1958, didn't have a lot of the social support systems they have now. That meant 65, he had to get a job, and so he did. And after he took about a year off, and he started milking cows again. He milked until he was 72. But it was a dairy in Mentone, and the dairy went from he was milking about 90 cows 6 days a week, twice a day. So he got a dairy close to home, about 5 miles from home, and he milked about 46 cows twice a day, 5 days a week. So he was happy as a hog and slop then. So I went to Redlands High School, and I did not finish. Dan was talking about he went in the Navy after year graduation. I went in the Marine Corps a year before I graduated, because that was the wish of my probation officer at that time. And I was happy to comply. And so I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, was honorably discharged in 1963. And I wish they had that program still today. I think it'd be a big help. But got out in '63, did odd jobs working. Got married, and my wife Carol, we married in August 31st of 1963. And you do what you have to do. And so you worked a lot of, I call them hey-you jobs, and made ends meet, went to college, 2.5 years at Biola College, and then took about a year off, went out to Morrison, Colorado, outside of Denver, and finished out there at Western Bible College, and in 3 years. And then we went over to Thailand for 4 years, came back, lived in Colorado, worked as the program director of a radio station, and for about 6-7 years total time. And then we moved out to Oklahoma, pastor a church, and we came out here in 96, and to come out to a pastor church. And that things necessary did not work, and then I ended up applying for and got the job as the executive director of the Gospel Rest Commission, where I was for about 13 years, and retired from there on December 31st of 2012. So that's been my background. I've been in community service is what I've done a lot of, and for the last 4 years I think I have tried to continue that. I'm very involved in the different situations. I don't believe that I have the answers, and I'm going to try to tell you what you ought to do. That's not what I understand. But I'll be happy to go and talk with Barry and sit down and talk with him and listen to what he's saying, and to become part of the community process and have a listening ear. How can I assist, and how can I help you do what you want to do where you're at, all within a province of legalities in the county, that kind of thing. So I've enjoyed my last 4 years, and I would trust that I would be entrusted with another 4 years, and that would depend upon you. So.
Okay, great. So now let's open it up to the audience, and they will ask questions, and I would like each one of the candidates to respond to it in a short manner, if at all possible. Neil?
Thanks for coming, everybody, appreciate it. Like your garden burgers. I know your mom, she works at the county courts. Had good conversations with her. Mr. Heck, we've met out here, you've been really, what I consider a good representative, like coming and talking to me for a few hours one day, we walked around the woods, that was really
Appreciate
cool.
it.
In general, I think we're lacking that out here. I was going to suggest that, and I'm sure you would all say yes because you're going to get run for election, is that once in a while you have a county commissioner meeting out in Williams, once every 3 months or whatever it is, because you guys all live in town pretty much, I'm assuming, and that's great, but it's different out here. And the best way to understand what that's like is to actually meet with people like this. This is a pretty small turnout, but there's a pretty big pile of concerns for people that I assume I'm not the only one. It feels like we don't really get talked about. I mean, the money issue for the county is big, but the representative issue is even bigger for me. Like, I'm a little less concerned about how you're going to spend that 5 cents that you can spend one way or the other, but are you listening to us? Not so much, necessarily about finances, but about what are our concerns? Like if I feel like you're going to be responsive to my concerns, then I want you to represent me. I want you to represent my community. I will only know that if you're talking to us and if you're listening to what we need out here, and so along those lines, there are some things that impact us out here and that don't necessarily impact the town. The roadside spray issue, a big one for us. I mean, we ran a campaign. We lost by a couple of votes because all of Grants Pass doesn't get sprayed on the roadside. It's not a problem for them. They were just told that more money was going to get spent if we had to do it by manual operations. Well, we do that in Williams, and it's actually cheaper because Darrell does most of it, or a couple other people. Right? But this is what we're talking about. We're talking about that kind of volunteer stuff to assist us in not poisoning ourselves. We're willing to do that kind of work, but we haven't had that cooperation from the county commissioners in that realm. We've had to fight the county commissioners in past years. We'd like that kind of a solution, like, why do we spray so many thousands of gallons of poison on our roadsides? And so if how well you work with the road department, does the road department listen to you guys? Are they their own they've often felt like their own separate entity over there, and so I want my representative who runs the county for us to have a big say in what happens with the road department. They're like a fiefdom over there. They get their own tax money from the gas taxes, and they do their own thing, and they don't really listen very well. Like they're not like they work for us. They work for somebody else. So that's the one. And one last little issue. I'm not really gonna. You can respond or not, but the next time I see Rough and Ready on the front page of the newspaper whining about how they're going to have to close their mill because the damned environmentalists have taken away all their logs, I'm going to puke if I don't see something from some representative of mine that points out that Rough and Ready owns 100,000 acres of private forest land in this county alone. And they can't run their 50-person mill on 100,000 acres, which they pay a dollar per acre tax. And they can't run their mill, and so they're always asking for the county or the state to provide them grants so they can retool their mill. They're the richest entity in the county. They own $1 billion worth of forest land, and they're begging out there, and that they've just been run so hard and they can't get their logs. They own 100,000 acres. Like I want you guys to know that the next time they're going to come into your office, because they're going to. I know the Krauses and the Philippi's, and they're going to come into your office and they're going to cry big Hollywood tears, and they own 100,000 acres of forest land. If somebody out here wants to employ 50 people, because it's the same amount of people they want to employ, are you going to write that grant and help them get that grant? Because we need those 50 people to work in our woods, but we'd love to have that money and employ those people. But Rough and Ready gets the money. They get the last time they applied for a grant, the county was big time in back of them. It's like, I don't get it. They own 100,000 acres. They should be employing 250 people cutting their own private forest land, not begging for our timberland. I want to see some representation and understanding of the issue that way in people that represent us, not just, okay. That's,
So,
anyway.
all good points. Neil.
So anyway, yeah, the roadside spray thing, that's my question.
I'm trying to get a question out of that.
Neil missed the
I
part of the
learned a
meeting
lot of-
where we said it would be in the form of a question.
Yeah, how that is that stops dialogue when you only get to ask a question. So my question is, what will you do about roadside spray in this county?
Let me take care of rough and ready first, and come back to roadside spray. Rough and ready, I believe, I might be off by a couple acres. This last 24 months has not cut hardly any timber out of Josephine County.
On public land or private land?
Any timber out of Josephine County.
Why?
They're bankrupt. They're selling the rough and ready is not the Philippi. It's not going to stay in the hands of that group anymore. That is, they are out of business as an entity.
They're gonna give us that 100,000 acres back?
No. I mean, because that has been obtained by their whatever the process is.
Yeah.
That's part of the business deal. I'm sure will be included in
If it's in
that.
receivership, it's an asset that's owned by the corporation, and it'll probably get auctioned off, I'm going to assume.
But they're not the big partner, so to speak, as they were, not by any means.
Okay, well, so it'd be interesting to see what happens to that 100,000 acres, because it
Yeah.
affects all of our backyards. And they,
So we're getting a little bit off track. If we can talk about forestry issues when we talk about forestry issues, but his question was, and each one of the candidates on the roadside spray, the use of toxins in our neighborhood. You first?
I'll start with the roadside sprays. There is a process in place with Public Works, Josephine County Public Works, that if you don't want them to spray there, you just fill out a little piece of paper and they won't spray. One of the things that's part of the deal is if you don't want the pesticides and the herbicides and stuff in your ditch in front of your place, you just have to agree to keep it clean. And I think you already said you would do that.
oh, we have.
Yeah, you've been taking care of it. So as far as the county goes, it costs less money for them to spray than to come back and clean the ditches. But if you end up having to clean the ditches, you keep all the vegetation out of there, they have no reason then to save both. Now, all of a sudden, they don't have to pay to spray the herbicide, and they don't have to pay to clean the ditches because you all take care of it. You mentioned something, there are 8 general demographics in Josephine County. You in Williams are way different than Wolf Creek and the issues we hear in Wolf Creek. And the same thing with Sunny Valley, a whole different set of issues. So the main thing is and we talked about trust, Bill touched on trust. You don't trust me, and if I get elected, you're still not going to trust me, I guarantee it. You know why? Because I have that dirty politician word after my
That's
name.
not, that's talk
But
about
anyway,
something else.
I'd like to work on that
Look me
trust.
in the eye and you
But
tell
I'd
me
also
something.
like to, as you said, I think it's a great idea to have a commissioners meeting out here. But does that answer your roadside question?
Yeah.
Not really, but go ahead.
Okay, the next candidate on the same issue, the roadside spray.
I agree with you that on a personal level, I don't like the spraying pell-mell, and he's given the solution. And what it does is, again, involve the community. And if you're, as Dan DeYoung said, we got to step up. When money's flowing, you don't have to step up. Money's not flowing.
It's still flowing to the road department, big. We know
There's
that.
Yes.
there's always the last guy to receive the last check. I think it'll be roads.
Gas taxes aren't going away. Like
But you do have an
They are going
option.
away.
And, but it involves your personal commitment, and a lot of people are unwilling to do that, and that's one of the reasons.
But why doesn't cutting replace spraying? If you're gonna spray, why don't you cut? I don't understand that.
Are we talking about roadside spray?
If
Roadside.
you're gonna spray, why don't you just cut? You're gonna be there anyway doing something, do that instead.
I think it's probably just the cutting would have to be repeated, and they're saying we don't have the manpower or we don't have the
It's
time.
That's the issue.
Money
Yeah,
to
that's money.
spray.
Not willing to spend the money on that, which is important to us, but not to them.
So right now,
Well-
they're spraying the Water Gap Williams Loop north.
Right.
And everything south of that, for the most part, if agreed upon for the maintenance, they're not. Some of the issues is with the mowing, it creates kind of a sod that's tearing up the side of the road, and when they're keeping the ditches clean. So, and the manpower of a weed eater with a single string, when you're talking about 20 miles of road, is not easy. But again, it comes down to, it costs $15,000 to $20,000 for them to mow, and $1,500 to $2,000 to spray. So for them, they see it as a financial issue. But it's also.
But it's lives and it's health, and it's like,
Absolutely. I voted against the GMO thing. I don't,
And I see them use those rotary mowers on tree
Yeah.
branches.
yeah, that's ODOT, but you're right. But it's one of those things that comes down to the overgrowth. It creates a fire hazard, and the maintenance has to be done. But absolutely, from what I understand, if you apply for the personal property responsibility permit, they call it, then they stop spraying before your property, and then they give a buffer, and they start spraying after. What we have to do is get all the property owners to agree. Did you know that they received a petition at Public Works from 35 to 40 homeowners in Williams asking for spray to start up again?
Oh, my.
The 35 out of 1,000.
I hear you, but it's one of those things that, the potential of, okay, if those people don't want to spray, or excuse me, they don't want to mow and keep their own upkeep, is there enough neighbors to do that for them? So that, because that's one thing I could say about your community, you drive in, it says, no spray, no spray, no spray. I mean, it's very
And nice
clear.
roadsides, like beautiful roadsides,
Yep.
people can walk up and down and not worry about their kids eating the blackberries that just got sprayed,
Yep.
which I have seen and had kids raised here. And so it's not just, oh, let's do this, like, no, if you represent us, we want you to talk to the county road department to make sure that they're actually doing what they say their job is. And if they say 15,000 to 1,500, I say baloney. Okay, baloney. There's lots of, Del Norte County doesn't spray their roadsides. There's plenty of counties around and Del Norte's got plenty of vegetation growing all year round that don't spray. And this issue's been something since we put it on the ballot in 1990 around here. And it seems like every couple, 3 years, we have to fight the county because they just are just trying to like kind of mose in a little bit this way and that way, and it's no fun. And I would like my representative to sit there and say, hey, let's fess this out, because it's cheaper now. But the first time someone who has an organic farm, which there are now all over the place on that roadside, gets sprayed from the county, from the roadside into their field, and they lose their certification, which is a real possibility, because they test soil on organic farms on a regular basis. Who's going to get sued? I'm getting sued, and you're getting sued, the county gets sued, and that lawsuit, if it's a loss of that person's livelihood, that kind of might turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that argument, well, it's cheaper, yeah, but it's not going to be cheaper, because sooner or later, if I'm an organic farmer that gets sprayed, you know I'm suing. I'm going to sue. And I know that's going to happen within the next 5 years. It's going to happen. Someone's going to sue. And then if you're the county commissioner and you haven't done squat about trying to change that program, don't go like this, oh, no, we can't, we have to fight this lawsuit. Like, wait a second, we talked to you 5 years ago, actually 25 years ago now. My hair's gray. I was little when I got here, and we're still dealing with it, and I've yet to have county commissioners, really. Mr. Heck's been pretty handy sometimes to take this issue on really with the road department. Not just go like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, just put a sign up and do your own work. No. I don't want to have my kid walk down the street and eat the poison berries on my neighbor's property. And one last question. I'm taking up too much. We don't get you very often. There's a guy in our neighborhood that sprays the roadside on his own accord. Now, as far as I know, he has no right to do that, and that's an illegal act. I don't know if he has an herbicide permit. He's just a guy. He's one of those guys, the 30 people that want spray. He sprayed a year ago a mile of frontage all across different people's properties that were pissed. Okay, how does that happen? Like, how come that person didn't get arrested or talked to? Or, I mean, I can't do that. I can't go spray poison in front of my neighbor's house.
Yeah, Keith was the only person that wasn't able to respond.
Yeah, one of the reasons why is, I don't know the address of the area you're talking about, Neil. You never called and talked to me about it.
No,
But if you do, I certainly will look into it and check on it for you.
Yeah, well, I'll give him his address shortly.
Yeah.
Just for the record, I've paid for Roundup before. It's pretty damn expensive. I cannot imagine spraying a mile of road frontage.
Well, neither could I, but it happened. It was more than a month.
Yeah, and that's not the point. But if you let me know where you're talking about, what the address is, I will be happy to look at it.
Okay.
I think Barry had a question of the candidates.
Well, the question I had is, I got the impression that, obvious, it's no secret that we're hurting for cash. And I got the impression that both of you guys, DeYoung and Lily Morgan, are working against the dispensaries. And it just seems to me that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that's a potential, really good potential income for the county.
So.
Maybe I'm wrong about
Well, I'll start with that. I don't know where you got the impression that I'm against the dispensaries.
Oh, that's
because,
wrong, okay.
Other than the paper that got passed out that isn't
No.
exactly right, but the city was facing having a decision to whether or not to have dispensaries in the city limits or not. Overwhelmingly, the responses that we got from city residents is they did not want necessarily grows. They said, not in my backyard, essentially. The city council opted to not allow grows, and then they put to the ballot. My response, I wasn't there for the vote when that happened. I was out of the state. And it was one of those things that my response when I heard was, my first meeting back, I said, then allow them dispensaries, because if you take away their ability to grow the medical, then you have to allow them to have a dispensary so they can get the product. And I was over, that was not supported by the rest of the council, and they said, no, we're putting it on the ballot in November of this year. And that was, you can go back and check the minutes. I asked for them to allow dispensaries since they didn't allow the outdoor grow. In the meantime, the other thing I did is I reached out to Representative Carl Wilson, because I know that he was not pro-cannabis before Measure 91, and he came out and he's on the advisory board that created the regulations with the OLCC and everything else after that. And it's one of those things that by the time the discussion or the vote happened in July, and I was on vacation, I had my family in town, so I stayed away from city council when the votes happened. It wasn't on my radar. And I came back, it gave me a chance to kind of start and say, I've only had one exposure to cannabis in my lifetime. Other than watching my brother, who ate too many brownies when he was in his early 20s, writhing on the floor with a bellyache, I wasn't around it. I took a path that didn't really expose me to marijuana. I was born and raised here, and I'm one of the few that's never used marijuana. So my exposure has been as a parole officer, working with people that have addictions to meth and heroin and alcohol and other things, that for the most part, when you hear, well, I got clean from that, I'm using my marijuana to stay clean from that. And that was my exposure. And so what I did is I started asking questions about, I need to hear from the cannabis industry. I need to hear from people outside, so I'm not hearing one perspective. And so I've reached out to people I knew that were in cannabis, went to the cannabis fair last year to learn more, to find out more. And what it's come down to for me is that I think what's hurting us, quite frankly, is the black market. Because you have the people that are trying to have the legitimate businesses working either the recreational side through the system of the dispensaries or the medical side. They're paying all the fees for the permits to get the properties going. They're paying all the fees for going through the state and all the regulations with the video cameras and registering every plant. I mean, that's the recreational side. The medical, I know it's a little different and all that kind of stuff. But they're going through all the process. But there's other people that are making a whole heck of a lot more money to sell out of state still, or to go the other route. And at the point that the regulation is consistent across the board, we're going to see where the profit is and where those legitimate businesses are able to go there. The other problem is with the $25 million in taxes they've collected from this so far, where are they distributing it? Portland. Portland's not growing it. We are. And so why not go back to legislators and say, like Bill said, is they're going to be back at the table. Since they're seeing all that revenue, they're going to reinvent the wheel. Well, this is where we come in and we say, we want a piece of that pie. We're not the ones selling it in the dispensaries. We're the ones growing it for your dispensaries. So why don't you take a portion of that dispensary money and you give it to the growers, and then the rest of it go to there. So we're being funded for the portion that's impacting our community by growing.
That's a good point. I really want to focus on Williams' issues, and that is really big. So I'd like to hear from the other candidates how they feel that money should be distributed in Josephine County.
Well, I'll take that because I'm in the city, and one of the things that we did, and where I got my vote when I voted against dispensaries on the city council, is I'm a neighborhood watch captain for about 60 people. We had a meeting prior to the vote, and I said, of all the people here, How many are in favor of having or recreational marijuana dispensaries inside the city limits? No hands. How about for medical marijuana dispensaries inside the city limits? One lady raised her hand. She said, I've got a brother that needs it for PTSD. And I said, so you're it? She goes, yeah, not for me personally. So that's what I took. You asked about listening to your constituents. That's exactly what I did. Now, if I'm going to get blamed for that, I'll take it all day long. The other thing that Lily brought up, and I brought it up, I talked to a senior senator, a Democratic senator from the legislature just the other day because I was in an RV Act meeting, a Rogue Valley Area Commission on Transportation meeting. She asked me about the marijuana situation down in Grants Pass and Josephine County and Jackson County. I said, it's cause and effect. Your law caused a heck of an effect on our two counties. We create probably more than 50% of the marijuana that's used in the state of Oregon. More than 50% comes from Jackson and Josephine County. How, more?
Less.
Less? Okay, just whatever it is.
Hold on.
Yes.
That's bad information.
Okay.
Most of the cannabis consumed in this state is created in indoor operations in Portland.
Okay.
And most of the cannabis in Josephine County leaves the state.
Makes
Leave the
sense.
state, okay.
That
All
is
right.
the truth.
But anyway, when you get down to
Of
the
course it's not
dispensaries,
supposed to.
and if they're
That's
going
why
to
the
collect,
black market hurts the county, because they should be taxed. When it goes through the sale system, they should be taxed, and then the money should trickle down from the state to Josephine
but the
County.
way the state divvies up the money is just the exact same thing that they do with liquor taxes. It's by population. We have 89,000 people here. Guess what? We don't get anything. The lion's share goes to Portland and Eugene and Salem. So my proposal to her was to save $100 million a year that they collect. Take 30% of whatever it is, and that goes to the places that produce it, which is Jackson and Josephine County. She says, well, that's all you want? I said, all I'm doing is restructuring the system. You've thrown it to OLCC, and OLCC only knows how to do it one way, and that's by population. So we need to lobby our legislators, which I don't think anybody up here would be against doing, strongly, and get those legislators. I've got this senior lady, she says, I'm on your side. Herman Bear Trigger's on our side. And we go to them and say, we just need you to restructure your methodology for 30%, and it needs to go where it's grown, and it's grown here, the outdoor grows. This is where we need the money, and I think that needs to, that's a pretty sound thing, and it's achievable.
We agree.
I was in Sun Growers meeting a month ago, and OLCC was there. And as you know, there's a lot of applications, but hardly any given out yet. But she said Jackson County had 126, I think it was, that were applied for. Josephine County had 108. This is recreational. She said the rest of the state had 17.
Well, they also
This is recreational,
they also did outdoor before indoor. So now the statistics are way different. They've now licensed many.
And they will change in the next
So
couple
those
of years.
statistics have changed since they were.
It's
the last
but
month.
all to say that I totally agree that what Salem decided before this all happened was they weren't looking where the grow was happening and where the people who are a part of this whole transaction are we're known. We're nationally known. Boutique Williams. People go to Colorado and say you're from Williams. Oh, we talked to and you're a boutique reputation, not Gallo wine. We're talking about boutique here, and so I think that exactly what you say. I'd go for 40%. We'll settle.
Well, we just need to pick a number. But we will, any one of us will lobby and go to that state legislature because that's where it is. We need to be heard loud and clear down here. But I think we've got a pretty good basis for that methodology to change.
Yeah, I will not tell you what I will do, but I will tell you what I have done. And whether we like it or not, and I'm assuming most of the people in this room do like it, marijuana, cannabis, is a legal product. So let's stop any attempt to be a barricade against it. It is a legal product, and it has money associated with it, one way or the other. Above board, under board, there's money associated with it. We have not established very many regulations and rules independently in Josephine County. I think we have one that's to be on the ballot, and that's a 3% tax on the November ballot. That's the only thing that the Josephine County Board of Commissioners has done with this industry, because we want to see it succeed and we want to see it grow. So I'm not going to tell you what I will do. I'm going to tell you what I've already done and what I will continue to do. And that's to see it succeed and to be able to succeed well.
And the reality is,
And you put dispensaries.
the thing that's keeping some of our communities going right now is the cannabis industry. Cave Junction, for instance, I talked to a realtor yesterday who 100% of what her realty market is right now is out-of-state folks buying land so they can grow. And it's keeping, the cash flow is keeping our building departments going, and it's keeping the permitting for the greenhouses and the building fields, yeah, all of them. And so
In 10 years, cannabis from Josephine County will be like wine from Napa County nationally.
What I said.
it already
Without
is.
well, it already is, but it will be on the trucks that bring wine and liquor state to state in somewhere between 3 and 10 years. And that's going to be all these grows that are popping up. They're not here to just serve Oregon.
No.
This is going to be an enormous national industry, and this is one of the centers of it.
Well, and at the Sun Growers, they had a branding person there. California's already branding.
Oh, yeah.
And they haven't passed it yet.
Yeah.
But they're
been
already
branding for 10
working
years.
on national branding already.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of break with what I said at the beginning. We allow the Williams people to speak first, and Mr. Seligman is going to ask a question, not make a statement.
No, I don't believe you.
Which would be answered by each one of the candidates, not just one.
People should, I have a little statement, and most of it's a question, so, because I won't go on as long as this fellow, I assure you, but that's all
But
right.
he lives here.
It's amazing the misinformation. Candidates run on their record. Each one of them runs on their record. The two at the end, and this is a question, the two city councilors have done everything in their power as city councilors to be for every single tax, except Lily was not for a sales tax. And as far as cannabis, now that they're running for political office, their tone has changed completely. These two on this end have a different tone. Now, my question is this, and it's mostly regarding the tax levy, and I want all to respond. Lily Morgan, it's well known that All Cares donated $5,000 towards your campaign, and you said you're not bought and paid for. And you've been asked, did you support the levy being placed on the ballot? And you said no. And I want to ask all of you, did you support the levy being on the ballot? But the second question, that's even more important, should any one of you win, and two of you will, and the levy fails, will you support it being on the ballot if a group of citizens come to you? I don't want to hear remarks like whatever the people want. The people have voted 9 times no. So that answer is unacceptable. This is yes or no. I will support the levy on the ballot in the future, or I won't. That's my main question. We need to know clearly how our potential leaders stand. We can't have fence sitting. It's what the people want. 9 times the people have voted no. So I want to know, and here's my question just to reiterate, if any one of you are elected, 2 of you will be elected commissioner. If a group of citizens comes to you and said, well, the levy failed, and we want you to put it on the ballot, would you put it on the ballot, and do you support the levy right now? 2 questions.
So, Mark, based on the philosophy of what you just said, you've run for county commissioner 5 times and you've never.
I want a yes or no answer.
I'm
not asked a question.
Using
Will
your
you support a levy
philosophical-
being put on the ballot? It's on the ballot. Will you support it? Yes or no?
I guess for the folks of you that are here that I came to listen to, there's not an event that I've been to that Mark hasn't shown up trying to attack, and he's been talked to and given answers, and he hasn't provided any response. When it comes down to it, is we as commissioners are elected to represent. So when a vote by the people happens, we represent what that vote happened. That's why when the cannabis industry voted for it, that's when I reached out to Carl back in October last year and said, Carl, I need a different perspective. Where do I start? And I started reaching out to cannabis industry to see a different perspective because I wasn't exposed to it before then. My job was to follow what the law said. That's a commissioner's job, period. Now, when it comes to how an individual votes on anything, that's really nobody else's business on how you vote for president, senator, commissioner, anything else like that. There's this great saying that says, your opinion is none of my business. And really, it comes down to, your opinion is none of my business, Mark.
This is not an attack.
This is my turn to
You're
talk,
not answering
Mark.
the question.
Mark, this is,
Not answering the question.
you made it clear in every event that I've gone to that you don't like me. You
No,
haven't.
I like
No,
you.
hold
I
on.
just want you to answer the question.
Mark, it's none of my business, and so here's my answer. It's a people initiative, and I don't think it's going to solve the problem. I think that each individual has to decide if they can afford it or not, and they have to vote individually. And the commissioners and the budget committee have to decide what to do with that money. Is there other things we can do with the county to make it better? Yes. And I do not think $1.42 is going to help Williams. I do not think $1.42 is going to help Cave Junction, O'Brien, Wolf Creek, or Sunny Valley. And so until we look at the things that are going to help those areas, no levy is going to help. And I'm not supporting a levy, but if this levy comes out and it passes, do I say, no, thank you, I don't want the money because the will of the people said it passed? That's not my job to tell the people how to vote. My job is to say, you voted, I'm going to respond. So I cannot say that in 4 years, if any topic comes up that would be put on the ballot, I'm going to give you an answer right now and say yes or no, I'm going to do that. Because I don't know the circumstance that's going to happen in the next 4 years that might get me there. Do I know everything about this levy? No. To be honest, I'm one of those people that I get my ballot and I read the title. I research the yays and the nays. I research this. I have not read this levy yet. I have not made up my mind on who I'm voting for president, Mark. I really don't like my options. I have not made up my mind on how I'm voting on anything yet except one topic, and it's controversial, but it's none of your business, just the same as your opinion's none of my business.
Okay,
So-
next candidate.
I will say that I will continue as I have for the last 3 years. I will not support a public safety levy. I will not initiate a public safety levy. Doesn't mean that I would not support it or what, but I do not believe that a public safety levy coming out of the commissioner's office is a positive step. And that's what needs to be. If the citizens put one on there, the commissioners have no regulation or rule over that. So, but I will personally, as I have for the last 3 years, I will not support the county commissioners promoting a public safety levy.
And that's an important distinction here, because what he's saying is different from what Mark was asking. Mark is saying, will you, if a number of people come, will you put something on the ballot on their behalf? Well, if they come with the signatures, they don't really have a choice, do they?
No.
So the question really is better asked, are you yourself as a commissioner going to initiate a levy? And that's different. And
I can answer
Andrew
that.
would
I
say
have no
no.
current plans to initiate any levy. I think we have bigger issues to deal with in the meantime, and that's getting our people safe first and finding a thing. But no, I do not have, if you want that answer, Mark, I do not have any plans to initiate anything.
So if a group of
Okay, next
citizens
So
comes to
candidate,
you,
please. Next candidate.
You need to leave?
Yeah. And Keith said something very, very pointed, and I don't know whether you're going to listen because that's a tough thing.
don't demean me, I'll listen to you.
No, I'm just stating a fact. I would not support a levy because you know why? I've already done that one time. The levy to me is a solution. It's just one solution. The sales tax thing for 2 cents in Grants Pass, that was a solution. We could have initiated that, but we didn't. We put it on the ballot for the people to see. It was overwhelming. Don't do that. Guess what? I'm not going to do that again. Guess what? It's the same thing like Keith said. Keith said the Board of County Commissioners is not going to put something on the ballot. That's for the citizens to put something on the ballot for the citizens to vote on.
Do you support a levy? Yes or no?
No.
Thank you.
Next candidate.
Thank you.
No and no.
Thank you.
No one, no. Great. Next question for the candidates. Anybody?
I
Lisa?
just have a comment. I really would like to see people from Williams making the questions here. It kind of really
We
hurts.
did up to that
Listen,
point.
let me finish what I'm saying, because this is just in the frame of what I'm saying. It really irks me when people come from outside of Williams and get on a soapbox here because, generally speaking, what Neil said is true, is that we don't get the same kind of representation generally of commissioners that come out here. You know, we just don't get the time. And so if you come in from another area and you bring your concerns, you know, it's really taking away from the time of the people in Williams, and I just would like to see that.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Good. Another Williams question?
Make the suggestion that, you know, if you, not that you would put something on the ballot, of course, but if some person or entity or group of people put on, like you want to give something, if you're going to offer, like we're going to have a levy of some sort, a sales tax is what I'm going to suggest on non-necessary items, just on the bigger stuff, right? Not food, not whatever, gas. If you said, all right, we're going to trade the property tax, which a lot of people find offensive just on the surface, right? If I don't pay the county a certain amount of money, they're going to take my home away from me. But if I'm spending money at the store, I have no problem spending an extra 2, 3, 4, 5%. And especially in this kind of economy, like people complaining about the black market, I'm not even going to touch that one. But that money gets spent here. All that money gets spent. All you got to do is drive around and see all those new cars at Grants Pass. You know, there's people with money around here. And so it makes no sense not to have a sales tax. And it can be structured that it doesn't affect people who are just barely making it, and it gives property tax relief to the people who are really poor but own a piece of land. And they got to pay $1,500 or $2,000 a year just to keep their house, right? I find that extortion. But if I'm going to participate in the economy, then yeah, I'm willing to pay that extra 5% tax every time I go to the store and buy something. I have no problem with that because it's not extortion. I don't have to participate in that. I have to participate in the county property tax because if I don't, I lose my home. Like, that's extortion to me, and I think it offends people. But if you said it, we'll take that away, and not every place has property taxes in the country. But we're going to put the sales tax in. We're going to make it very fair, and we're going to produce this amount of revenue because we know the amount of money that gets spent in this county. We know what that is. How much would you have to save? 1, 2, 4%? No more property taxes. No more governmental problem because we actually have an adequate amount of money to run the county now. And who gets hurt by that? That's what I want to know. Who gets hurt? Because all the people that come through here and spend their money, how is it?
Okay, that's a good question. So sales tax out of everybody.
I mean, again, philosophically, I am anti-property tax for the simple matter that you are taxing, you can take away something that I own.
Yes.
And I find that personally repugnant.
Me too.
But now, the process, how do you go from where you are to what you would like to have?
Education.
That's the booger.
Education.
Well, you are going to have a whole lot more gray hair, I'm afraid.
So it's already there, Rob.
Yeah, you're going to have a whole lot more.
Not nowhere.
And I'm not going to be here, I'll be on the ground. But that is a long-term process of seeing, because that has to be voted in by the citizens of Josephine County. And I would say right now that if you put on the opportunity of saying, we're going to take away property tax, yeah, and we're going to put on the sales tax, you suck.
That's right.
And that's the difficulty. That's the difficulty. And I'm not saying it can't be done, shouldn't be done, or whatever.
It would
but
solve some problems.
it's but you're going to have to. One of the things too, you add up 2% or 4%, whatever sales tax you want, and to come up with $7, $8, $12 million, that is a bunch of goods. There's no equivalency, and that's one of the strong points of a property tax. That's makes it very difficult to replace.
Bill?
Before, I was just going
Lily?
to, I know, I'm not answering. He's got 3 minutes to leave. I didn't know
I've
if
got
we
a couple of minutes.
Okay, good.
Okay, we tried a 2% sales tax inside the city limits of Grants Pass. It was limited to 2% of the first $1,000. If you bought a truck from Jim Siegel Chevrolet, your tax obligation on that sales tax was $20. That's easy. We were going to get rid of a $1.79 public safety levy tax, property tax, get rid of it. And we were still going to have enough money to take care of it because you know what? It spread the burden. And when I went to talk to Kevin Whittiston of the paper, and I said, why were you so adamantly against it? He's because I don't want to pay when somebody else isn't paying. And I said, but what a sales tax does is it spreads the burden across a broader group of people. Our tourism is a huge asset here, and guess what? They come in here and allow, you don't have a sales tax, are you out of your mind? Some people it's 8 to 10%. Here it was gonna be 2 lousy percent. And boy, did we get a pushback, and I think it was exactly, you said education. I think it is information. Nobody read that thing that was in the paper, in the ballot, to tell you exactly what it was. They
You don't
just
have to
called
read
it
it if you're against it.
So that was the end of that. And we just put it on the ballot. You know what? Loud and clear, sales tax absolutely went down in flames. And so I think of the sales tax, and I was born here. You know how many times I voted against the sales tax? Over and over and over again, because I don't want to be like California. Period. End of conversation. But when we really sat down and had a proposal that was going to pay for police and fire, lower your property taxes inside the city by $1.79 a thousand, and never cost you more. You went down about $11,000 worth of furniture at Gates Furniture. Guess what? It was $20. And people, oh, that's going to kill me. It's going to break the bank. But yet at the same time, it was lowering their property taxes, and they didn't get all of it in one big package, because it's a very complex issue. So am I for a sales tax? I'm going to let somebody else put that on and do all the legwork. And because I'll tell you what, I think it was Mark, but somebody put a sales tax sign on my berm outside my shop said, Dan DeYoung, sales tax, and dollar signs. It's very poorly made. But they put it out there.
It was yours.
I put it, Mark, had your name all over. Anyway, but they put it out there, and I lifted it, put it away. I said, you know what? I'll take anything you want to give me, because I will never apologize for bringing something to the voter. Not one time am I going to stand up in front of you and say, I'm sorry I did that.
Could you tell people how you personally would have benefited by this sales
Bill.
tax? Can
I
have
wouldn't.
a
Bill
property tax?
hasn't got an answer yet.
Okay, fine. Information.
Bill did stand.
I'm philosophically where both of them are, and that is sales tax is a really, really difficult sell in the state of Oregon. It started in 1937, and we're proud as heck that we haven't succumbed.
Heck yes.
Heck,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
how'd you work that in there? That's good.
You got
You
this
paid
late.
it.
Yeah,
what's going on here?
You know, when it goes down 80-20, nothing goes down 80-20. Nothing goes down. There is no election that you'll ever find 80-20 unless there's an enormous amount of motion involved.
Recall.
The recall's pretty close to it.
There was a lot of money behind the no vote. Tons of it.
Yeah, so you're really walking uphill on that. Now, am I open to other ways to do to look at public safety? And absolutely, in no way am I saying, well, we're not going to do any of that. But sales tax, I've got to tell you, sitting at the table first day, you've got to have some pretty sound arguments on how you can climb that hill in the state of Oregon. And when you can't get Medford and you can't get Roseburg and you can't get, you know, you'd be better off trying to get a state sales tax than get one, I think, in Josephine County.
That would be my perspective too, is that unless it were statewide, you're always going to have people going somewhere else too. We would get calls when the sales tax was coming up to the city. We'd get calls from people living in the county saying, don't do this. I will bypass shopping in your city to go to Medford. Well, I grew up doing that. I mean, where's Costco? Where's the mall? You know, that was something that we already shop in Jackson County equally to Josephine County sometimes. And you guys are even closer with your back route through Jacksonville than we, you know, it's already competition for our shops. And the reality is unless they were willing to get rid of also the other one we get hit with very strictly is our income tax. And I almost 50% of my income goes to state income tax. And it's just one of those things that it is ridiculous that the state collects it all and it's not coming back to down here. And so it's one of those things that if there were something that were equal to the whole state, but it would have to be a trade-off. If you trade this for that, then maybe they'd consider it.
Well, yeah, no property.
So one area of trading off that you can consider, you know, they say that Public Works gets all these dollars, you know, from either the timber receipts goes to Public Works partially, the sales of property can go towards Public Works, and they get this back of the O&C. Well, there's that, you know, that $1.5 million, whatever, that they say you can put towards deputies on the road. Well, how do you replace that money? One way to do it would be a gas tax per se, because gas tax has to go to the roads. So, I mean, it's one of those things that you can start looking at other things, but the reality is it's always a shell game. Who's paying it? Where's it coming from? To me, gas tax is the easiest thing that you get the people that are passing through, and they wouldn't know it. Except that the stipulation on gas tax is it has to go to the roads. So then how does that help public safety if it has to be on the
That
roads?
has to be changed.
Can I do a quick close and then I have to get going? I apologize. But I appreciate all of you coming out. I wish there was more of you because there's a huge amount of people in Williams. There's like, a lot that are not being represented here tonight. But I think all four of us have heard you've made some really good points. You've made some good points. You've all made good points. But there's four candidates up here that out of the field that we started with before the primary, I think you got the four top people right here in front of you. I think the people that got voted out for a healthy reason. So, you take your pick, vote your heart, and I'm not going to ask you how to vote. I'm going to ask you to vote for me, but Keith's going to ask you to vote for him, so we're square. I respect the man a lot. They asked one time, how do you and him differ? I said, first off, I'm going to have a different management style than he is, and I was in the Navy, he was in the Marines. I ate pretty darn good compared to him. And it shows. Anyway, thank you very much for putting up with me. I got to get rolling.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess closing remarks from everybody. We have about 10 minutes. Lily?
I started last time, how about
Okay,
that?
I'll start this time. Just real quick on this deal. To $100 million worth of sales would be necessary to generate $2 million at 2% sales tax. We get 14 million, or half. This year, or last year, we get about 7.5 million from the property tax. And the comparison of it, it's not comparable in any way at all.
I think that the commerce of Josephine County is way more than 25 million. I mean, there's pieces of property that we're selling for $1 million left and right this last.
But now you're talking about property taxes. We're talking about sales
No, I'm
tax.
talking, that's the sales. When someone buys a $500,000 piece of property,
There's no sales tax
well,
on
there could
property.
be.
Yeah, so I'm just saying the amount of transactions that would be necessary. It's just. I mean, we can't pass a 2% on a whiff, and it goes down.
Places like New Hampshire or.
Okay, but I'm just saying,
have no property
there's got to be a
tax
whole
at all.
different change of mindset for that to even become a semi-reality.
Well, their brains around here need some expansion, let's face it.
That's
Anyway.
That's why we have
That's right.
Okay. Williams' contribution.
As far as my closing comments, I'm empathizing with the idea of seeing us. The difficulty of having a meeting out here is that you've got to take all the staff out here to keep all the minutes out here, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have it. I'm just saying, but it's much more cumbersome than just we're going to meet out there next week. But it's something I'll bring it up.
Think about it, because if we all want to go there, it actually means 50 cars driving
Sure,
to town,
sure.
which is a lot more than 5 cars driving here.
Oh, yeah.
to us,
No, I
right?
understand.
I mean, that's
I
kind of
understand.
what we pay you to do.
I'm just trying to tell you that.
It's easy for us, because we're,
Yeah.
we're working
Sure,
too.
sure.
Working all day, and it's hard to drive to Grants Pass and take a day off to go to the county
Sure.
commissioners meeting. It's hard.
Sure. No, I understand. I'm just saying that the comparable aspect is much more difficult than just the people transporting out of here out to there. It's more difficult than that.
Make it unofficial, don't bring your notes writers.
Well,
That's against the law, but other than that.
That's a problem.
There I go.
there you go. Yeah, we know your kind. Yeah. I've tried to demonstrate in the last 4 years in office, I'm concerned about all parts of the county, out here in Williams as well as anywhere else in the county. I mean, I've been part of the Williams Community Force Project, of coming out and listening and being liaison with that for several years anyway. And just trying to pick things up and understand, and I don't have any problem of representing what's going on and what the positions are. The biggest problem that I see is the hesitancy of people to even talk to you face to face. So then you got the opportunity of sending an email or a telephone call. All that, I answer all my telephone calls and I answer emails. It's the idea of saying, I think I've worked hard, and I would continue certainly to work, to have the presence out here of much more than just a name, the physical presence out here, just to be part and walking around and see what's going on and that kind of stuff. I enjoy that very much, and I want to certainly continue to do that. But it's to me, it's not an either-or situation. That's just part of the work and part of the job that needs to be done. And you need to show your face out here. So.
We're getting taxed right now. We gotta
I'm passing around a hat for the grain rental, so there's a local tax.
I appreciated what this woman had to say about the limited time that's out here. You guys have a reputation for being a very close community, not closed, but a close community. That's a plus and a minus for you, because you can be perceived as being left alone. You're doing fine, and so I think that's been part of the problem. Nobody sits down and thinks that through. But when you hear about Williams, years ago even, well, Williams is a really tight community. They look after each other. They're, and that was for Measure 91, where you've gotten some new challenges. But I'd be glad as a commissioner to be here. I think that we have to. The trust levels are down so far in several areas that we've got to rebuild from the ground up, not just send out a memo that it's all changed. And that'll take extra work on everybody's part. I will totally agree with what Mr. Heck said about the impact of you speaking out, coming out to things that matter to you. You believe that you don't maybe make a difference. I've been in a lot of meetings where things, not a lot of meetings where they turned around, but a lot of meetings where things were said that made a big difference in how things eventually turned out. And when the Basker gets 50, 60, 70 people in there, these guys have a different attitude. And I can see why. I would too up there when there's usually, 11 of us? 12 of us?
Not that many.
So you think, their impression, my impression even is, well, there must not be too much problem out there because nobody's here. But if you make a phone call, you make a gesture, you don't realize that does have an impact. And we've got, when there's money flowing, everything's fine for a county and for things. When the money gets tight, you have to band back together. And you guys are probably one of the best at that in the county that I've heard, at least by reputation. So I would look forward to working and dealing with you on a first name as much as I can, and I'm terrible at names, so I'm gonna work for that.
Bill.
It's Jim.
Oh,
And thank you very much for coming out. It's always appreciated.
Truly. I think there is an opportunity to look at where we've come from, where we go. Obviously out here, when you're talking about water rights to go back to 1857, there's generations and generations of families that have been out here in Williams making it be. And the reputation is that Williams has its own community culture and definitely resilient. I've been shopping Third Farm since I was in high school, so that's one of those things that, there's some great things that come out of here, but you're right. How many jobs are important, Neil? And 50 is incredible. So how do we be a part of not forgetting and being able to listen? And I really appreciate that you're saying that, and it shouldn't be a one-way drive. But I can tell you, as all three of us spent the last 3 days in Cape Junction. And so all three of us have put hundreds and hundreds of miles on our cars in this course of this, and because that's what we do.
But I ate 2 banana splits over 3 days, though. It was worth the drive, Bill.
There are rewards.
I spent a half an hour at the dump tank yesterday,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it was worth it, but I brought in some money for the Ivy chair. When I first signed up to run for city council, it was said, well, you work for the government, you can't represent the people. And my stand on that was, well, look at the jobs that I've had. They've been bottom of the line. They've been the worker thing. And I was raised by a man who was self-employed most of his life. And my role was to sweep out the shop or help with the siding or re-roof the house with him. Or, I was raised by a blue-collar worker. and we were taught to work hard. I worked 2 to 3 jobs all the way through college, and I went to college because I was told you better or else. And I didn't know what that meant, and so it took me a little longer than anticipated because I had to work to get through. My reputation that I built on the city council is that I would listen to the people that were represented, and I had a common sense approach. I was told I was a troublemaker when I fought to rent jail beds by cutting projects from other areas and rerouting the money to the jail beds. And that program was seen as a success, and they continued it after that. By listening to the people, we have Dog Park in Greenwood that was just a weed patch before, but it took somebody coming to our meeting and saying, would you obey your own rules and do something with this property? And we said yes, and we did something with that. I'm somebody who has my whole career ahead of me. I'm 40, I'll be 41 next month. And because of that, I have a long time I'm going to be susceptible to the decisions of this county. I'm not just somebody who's coming in to fix it, it's affecting me, and it's going to for a long time. And it is a career. It is something that you have to bring professionalism to. I've been intentional to prepare myself to do more in my community by stepping up. And what I realized is, as a counselor, I wanted more information, so I went to grad school and got finishing my business degree, because I wanted to know that there was a balance in that and not just representing one side. It's scary to put your career on the line. I'm not retired yet. I have another 25 plus years to work, and to take a career for me that is stable. I have a future in my current career, and to set that aside saying, I believe for the needs of my community, I need to keep working in a different path in this way. And that's really where I'm coming from, is I want to be a part of the solution working with you, and I can't do it alone. We have to listen to each part of our neighborhoods. We have to be in Williams, O'Brien, Selma, every little part of it, and saying, what do you need? How do we meet your needs? Not like we've heard where we're going to tell you what your needs are. So I think as far as being out here and listening, that is something that I'm willing to do. Appreciate your time. There was a lady at the store who I'd never met, but I said, well, have a good night. And she said, well, why make it just a night? Why don't you have a good life? And I figure that's a good blessing that we're all looking for. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How do we get there together so 6 more generations of Williams can still be doing what they're doing?
Thank you, everybody. We hit it right on time.
Thanks for coming out.